Hello everyone, hopefully you can hear me well. I've had trouble with my audio. Um, my faith presentation is on Mormonism. It actually is commonly known as the Church of Latter-day Saints, I've found out. Um, I spoke with a leader in one of the churches that was nearby here, actually the next town over. One of my friends was going there, so she encouraged me to come along, and I got to meet him before the service, and it turns out, like, I thought I was going to go speak with a preacher, and it turns out that they don't really have one speaker in their church, so I ended up talking to what is known as the bishop or president of the church, and he welcomed me with open arms. He was a very friendly guy. His name was John Roth, and you know, um, I interviewed him a little about the service stuff. At that point, I started using the Latter-day Saints term because apparently they don't really recognize the Mormonism term as heavily, even though they follow the Book of Mormon. He explained to me that their belief basically, there's a lot of the burden is placed on the followers with the idea that you earn salvation through following commandments and refraining from sin. Christianity tends to believe that you've already achieved salvation and you just need to accept it. However, you can always repent your sins and still maintain your salvation in the LDS Church, which is Church of Latter-day Saints. I'm just using the abbreviation. Some of the common beliefs I found, talking with the preacher and stuff, but they said that there are some differences and stuff. He pointed out that, Mormons tend to believe that there is no original sin. Christianity tends to believe that we are still paying for the sins of Adam, while he believes that we're punished for our own sins in the LDS belief. And so, I mean, I kind of thought that was neat to learn. If you lie or cuss or steal, that's your sin. It's not just the sins of Adam. Um, in Christianity, we tend to believe that God is a spirit, while in the LDS belief, they believe that God has a physical body. And I thought that was a little bit different than what I'm used to hearing. He also explained to me that they believe that humans can achieve godhood through their belief, and this comes from a quote that Joseph Smith had got when he was searching for his own faith. John told me that he believed that he explained Mormonism to me. I kind of double checked, what he told me and stuff. It goes hand in hand with what most I've read on the internet about it. That Mormonism originated through Joseph Smith when he was searching for his own religion. He prayed, and it was claimed to have seen a vision from a God, and that basically said all the churches at the time was wrong, and that he should join none of them. So, following the beliefs and stuff and being guided by angels and stuff, he was led to some, I want to say he said golden plates that was from Egypt that was found buried nearby. An angel had pointed out to him, and he helped him translate these Egyptian tablets and stuff, and it was found out that Jesus had appeared in front of the natives in the Western Hemisphere after his death. So, in their belief and stuff, that Native Americans actually had a big part of Christianity beforehand, before Americans settled here. I want to ask him about his what drew him into his religion. He told me that he actually started with it a little bit as a teenager. He had a friend that was part of the church and had spoken to him often about the services. He just wasn't ready to try it until he was a young adult. He'd served in the Army, and when he was in there, he was served in the Gulf War, and he came home feeling empty. So he finally tried the service, and he felt like it was changing his life. So he stuck with it, and he eventually became a bishop. And I thought it was pretty cool stuff. To hear somebody started off, lost, and then here he says he's found. Um, he told me, he said, one thing he liked was, that everybody kind of dressed in the normal clothes. You can't really tell who's who. Like most time you go in a church, the preacher is usually the one's the best dressed person, but, they may dress in the same clothes that everybody in the congregation has in LDS. So, when I seen him stuff, he was dressed in an outfit just like I'd wear to work basically every day. He told me that they don't have really one speaker that speaks at the church. He doesn't get up and preach to everybody for an hour like a preacher does. They usually have lessons that's handed down to them from their teachings and stuff, and the people in the church stuff have to kind of teach it back to the congregation stuff. He says I think he said it. at the time it was 3 hours was what most services last, with the first hour being the singing, prayer, announcements, the sacrament, which is what they call the, like the breaking of bread and the wine, taking the body of Christ, which is practiced in other churches and stuff, but they do it every Sunday with LDS. Um, the speakers are chosen in advance, several weeks in advance, so they may go to the second hour usually of their service and stuff is through a Sunday school type thing and stuff, and they'll be handed the lessons then, and that's when they kind of learn and they pray, and when they go back to and it's their turn to speak in front of the church stuff, they try to teach back what they've learned and what they've read and experienced. Um, at the end of they actually in the third hour of the services stuff is usually individual service, and everybody's divided up based on age group and gender. Men always have their service and the women have their service, and it's kind of the same thing. um, Last, at the end of the first hour they may sing, he told me. Trying to think if I forgot anything there. He said that, usually there might be at least 3 speakers chosen for each Sunday to speak in the first hour. He told me when I asked him about how he lives through his faith and stuff, he said he feels like he does it through prayer, studying, open discussion with others in the faith. They're very open with talk, discussion and stuff. If somebody feels lost, they'll talk to each other and try to find guidance through each other and through the scriptures. He admits that, he gets his temptations just like anybody else does. He always try to pray on any trespasses and temptations he's had, which I think is true for anybody, even in Christianity. We all have our, times when we've made mistakes, and, we're not all above sin. Um, uh, he told me that, some of the rituals involved in church stuff include the sacrament on Sundays, the prayers, church meetings. They actually have like a larger church meeting stuff at the chapels and stuff where, the people it's like very loyal to the faith go. They get to meet the lessons they teach in Sunday school and stuff are from the worldwide, they come from worldwide, so they're handed down from other branches and stuff, and they're the same lessons being heard in all their churches. They just might be taught slightly different. So it's kind of like school in a way, I guess, in that regard. Um, they'll assign the traditions is, they'll assign the topics individuals, and then they'll do a lesson to the rest of the group. First Sunday of the church, he says, one of their ritual is to have no hymnal or sing or anything. And it's just where everybody, and then no lessons, where they just basically the first hour they talk about their experiences, testimony, and everybody in the church is allowed to speak during that day. When I talked to him about the afterlife, he told me that the biggest difference for them is, that they believe that we exist as heavenly experiences, spirits before we had bodies, which in Christianity we're born and we go on and live a human life, and then we go on as a spirit, as the soul of our existence. But with them, they believe we existed before this, and we come to Earth, and how to say this, we come to Earth. We chose to come to Earth to get the experience, and then when we die, we go to the spirit world, and we basically get prepared for going to heaven or hell, and we still have a chance to repent before going in the spirit world, and then at that point we are reunited with our bodies. So I mean, our spirits and our bodies were rejoined when we go to heaven. I thought that was a neat aspect, to be reunited with our body, because in Christianity it's more like, it's just our soul that goes there, and our, or at least the way I was raised. There will be no sickness and pain naturally, just like with Christianity. So when I actually went to the service and stuff, afterwards stuff, after talking to them, at really first glance stuff, it was really like any church. They had they met on Sunday morning. It naturally could run longer than a regular service. I mean, I've been in some Christian services that might run 3 hours, but I've been in some that ran 40 minutes. The churches vary from town to town. This one wasn't very large. It had a few different rooms and stuff, a kitchen, a place for them to serve like church suppers, and, the rooms for the Sunday schools and things like that. The main room I noticed that for them and stuff is called the sacrament room, which is what the chapel is in other churches. Um, when I walked in and stuff, everybody was greeting each other. The bishop was there and a few others. I assume was the leaders. That was gathered around talking. The bishop's also called a president in some places and stuff. I guess he probably still has that title there. I just forgot to ask him. I know he had counselors that are there too. They started off with some church announcements, and after everybody greeted, got seated, they said we was going to get started, and they read over some church announcements, some news. They talk about possibly doing a softball thing in the spring, and just very good communion with each other. They sang some songs at that point, and they one of the rituals I noticed right off is they passed around the sacrament at that point and did the communion. And, it was very quiet during this time, and everybody was expected to partake. Um, you know, uh, I noticed with the prayer and stuff, there wasn't a lot like with Christian stuff. A lot of times you hear them say amen and a lot during the prayer, but it was very quiet during their mass prayer. Um, I think we was there probably for the full 3 hours. So I mean, I think it's pretty accurate. I guess it's kind of like a schedule for them is to have the 3 hour sessions. Um, the thing this week stuff that they talked about was salvation and a lot in their teachings and stuff. So I'm sure it's a very common teaching actually in all Christian based. Because we're all about salvation. Uh, People all seem very sociable for the most part. I found that the parts that I found most engaging was the singing, of course. It seems like every time you go to church, regardless of what the belief is, stuff, the singing is always very, easy to get embroiled in. The classes also, even though I'm not, a full-time member of clerk, I was allowed to watch and, learn from them, see how they was doing the classes, and, they was pretty engaging, and they seemed to, want you to be able to teach the subjects and stuff, and it's a little bit different in Christianity because, while anybody could just get up there and preach, they may not be delivering the topic the way it's, meant to be read from the Bible, if that makes sense. I don't fully understand it all at this point, because, I feel like I just barely grasped the surface, and I could have probably asked the bishop a whole lot more questions and learned a whole lot more from it, but, it just seemed like it all happened very fast, and I admit I probably wasn't as prepared as I should have been to ask him more questions, because it was definitely interesting, and I wouldn't mind going back and experiencing more of it, because, I'm always very open about these things. I think overall and stuff, I felt very welcome there and stuff. I'd say the only awkward part is just being in a service that's not something I don't fully believe in as a Christian. We was always taught that, there was nothing that came after Revelation. It was like the last book of the Bible. But with the LDS Church, they believe that the Book of Mormon was written and created after this book of Revelation. So it's kind of like it counteracts, what I've learned. So I guess it would be the same with Islam, or because Islam was created after Revelations as well. So I think it's where a lot of Christians butt heads with others, because we kind of learned that this was it. This is the Bible that we've got, and there's nothing past this. There's not going to be any more books. So but other than that stuff, it wasn't too awkward. They didn't make me feel unwelcome, and really the lessons and stuff. Other than touching on the Book of Mormon itself, there's not a lot different, when it comes to the lesson stuff, about, they follow the same 10 Commandments and, the same teachings of Jesus, they just have that extra book with some extra teachings in it. And, I could only grasp the surface of what's in that book because it's a sizable book compared, to be able to read in the short time in church. I tried to come up with 3 critical thinking questions for what I learned, and, my first one was when compared to Christianity, it said there's no other books past Revelations. Does this include a text such as Book of Mormon? Because I've noticed that they tended to refer to it as a text and not specifically a book at times. So I wonder if maybe there was a difference there. So I mean, would it be count still as a a book past Revelations, or is it more like an extra, like an addendum or something? Next question would be, what are the views of Mormonism by other denominations such as Christianity, Catholics, etc.? I kind of wonder, how these other religions view Mormonism. You know, I mean, the media and stuff, naturally stuff, it's made like that most Christianity doesn't tolerate Islam, and you know, then there's also been a lot of tension between Islam and Judaism. So I kind of wonder what the views is on Mormonism by these. Also wondered, my last question is, wonder what the views on what are their views on spirituality in relation to their faith. I mean, they kind of touch on the spiritual side of things, stuff, you know, but I don't know exactly how they view spirituality, you know, and as we've learned in this class, there's a big difference in it. Overall, I've really enjoyed this lesson. It was a unique experience to be able to make a video about it too. You know, I really do think I'll probably go back and try to experience the service again, just to see what difference is. I really like being open-minded and trying to explore the differences. I mean, that's one of the best things about this class is that, you know, we're able to kind of get a sense of how other things are. And, you know, as social workers stuff, it's very important to be able to understand things, you know, and the best way to understand things is to try to become a part of it in a sense, you know, and it's not just true just social work, but, you know, of any aspect of social work, you know, we can understand cultures better by, you know, talking to other cultures, and you know, same way with religions and things like that. And you know, as culturally diverse as we are, I think it's important in social work to gain knowledge about these different beliefs and stuff. Especially if, you know, I have a deaf and grief class that I'm taking as well, and you know, they talk about how a lot of people, when they're near death, as a social worker working with them, they have different beliefs. So I think, you know, this class kind of comes in handy as a, you know, to go hand in hand with that class. Thank you all for your time, and I hope you found my video informative. Sorry if I sound so monotone. I'm a very straightforward speaker. Thank you all.